All right, guys, welcome back to the Brutal American Podcast. My name is Tate Taylor. I'm here with Pastor Ethan Sin, as usual. No cold open today. We're just going to jump straight into this. Answering a question that we've gotten a decent amount here recently. We've talked about this with Eric, actually, if you wanted to go back and listen to that episode. I can't remember the exact title, but it's one of the last ones that we had Eric on, talking about leadership and the name change and kind of handing the reins over of Hard Men Podcast to us and now becoming Brutal American. But we're going to be talking a little bit about basically that name change. Where did the name come from? We've kind of talked a little bit about why we're not Hard Men anymore. What was the reason for that again?
Well, I asked Ben, he said, you just open up the comments on Instagram and just read those comments and be like, yeah, it's because you guys are too immature to handle it. Now,
the gay brain is just a little out of hand.
Yeah, it's just a little tough. But I mean, that name, for everyone who doesn't know, came from a book about Rhodesia called A Handful of Hard Men. That's where Eric originally got the name from, which is a great book. A lot of those 3 Sips of Gin and what was the other one? There's several.
Oh, man, I had it just a second ago.
We Dared to Win.
We Dared to Win is the one I was thinking of.
I haven't read the biography yet, but that one's supposed to be really good. Kind of hard to find.
I have a buddy who flew through it pretty quickly. I think you're the one that got him the PDF version of it.
I found a PDF.
Yeah.
But I haven't read it yet. I have a hard time reading PDFs. I'd rather audiobook it or listen or read like a physical book.
Also, the reading list right now is like 75 books long. So
what are you reading right now?
Right now, I need to start the Iliad, but I'm currently listening to, what is it?
Needham?
Yes.
You started
the 2,000 Years of Christ's Reign, the first volume of Needham is what I'm listening to right now.
Have you read any 5-volume set? Have you read any of those before?
We read, I think maybe volume 3.
Like the Reformation one?
Yeah, last year.
That is the best church history that I've found. I think at Southern they made us read Gonzalez, and I've read Shelley. This is by far the best one. Don't have to give the caveat you do with the other one. You don't have the soft, like egalitarian, ecumenical lean that a lot of these church histories do. So like anyone interested, it's very accessible, but very well researched and really, really a good set to have.
Yeah, I really enjoyed that first volume. It is really interesting. He gives a ton of background and context for some of the other things that are going on in the Roman Empire, as well as with the Jews at the time, and like the situation that Christ entered into as a man is really, really helpful, especially if you've been exposed to the New Testament your whole life or even just recently, but don't really know much about the historical period. It's very, very interesting. A bunch of the different religious sects and things that are going on at the time when Christ enters the scene is very helpful for understanding the context of the New Testament. So I've really enjoyed it so far. I've actually been listening to it. Layla, my daughter really enjoys listening to it. We'll listen to it like at dinner.
Oh yeah.
There are some portions where he's describing like pagan worship rituals where I'm like skipping
like the section on origin. Like just skip through that.
There's some like they're killing bulls over the top of men and stuff. It's pretty wild stuff that you probably never heard of before. If you haven't looked at the period. So that's the one I'm on right now. I need to start the Iliad as well. And then what is the other one that we're reading? The Value of Fear.
Yeah. Gift of Fear.
The Gift of Fear.
Yeah. I've never read that one before. I just started that one today. Think it's going to be good and helpful. I don't know yet. I don't know yet not into it enough to give it a recommendation.
That's kind of on deck. So, big reading list, but I don't know how we got on that. So anyways, we're going to go back to Brutal American. The Rhodesian stuff is how we got on
books,
that. Yeah. We will have to do some Rhodesia stuff at some point. You've read 3 Sips of Gin, right?
Yeah. Yeah.
It's phenomenal. It's really, really good by Tim Bax. Kind of his autobiography is great. But that's where Hard Men came from. Brutal American now. And in many ways, like it's still hearkening back to that same ethos, the Rhodesian ethos of this is who we are. We're unapologetic about it, but we're fighting a losing war on many fronts right now, as far as kind of the death of the West, as Buchanan would say, is taking place. And especially white European Protestant Christian, like that people group is just completely under assault. And so how do we maintain a level of pride and also like not lose ourselves to this basically suicidal ideology of guilt, manipulation?
Yeah, I mean, Stephen Wolf talks about white people being their own in-groups, out-group. And I think that's one of the, maybe the scariest part about this is like, maybe we recognize the assault, the fight, the war that's going on, but I don't think a lot of people do. I think a lot of people are kind of lulled to sleep and kind of enjoy their creature comforts and are kind of like, things aren't that bad. It's kind of like, who's the Old Testament king that's like, well, at least, it'll be bad for my kids, but at least it's not bad for me.
Right.
And it's kind of like that, where we've inherited a lot of problems and there's not a lot of people fighting back and we're almost afraid to fight back and like don't know where to do that. A lot of times is even, I think people that do recognize the problem, you're like, yeah, but like, what do I do about it? Like, how do I actually affect change in a meaningful way? And it's not at the national level. It's probably not at the state level. Like we have this like political system every couple of years that is kind of like the Super Bowl in a lot of ways, where like we get really excited about it and people are rooting for different teams. But at the end of the day, then, the next day you wake up and like nobody cares and nothing changed.
It was a whole bunch of spectacle, but there's no real outcome.
So yeah, I think young men especially are hungry for, yeah, but what do I do? What's something that I can do that's meaningful, that is Christ honoring, that will actually matter? And I think that's, I don't know, part of this is like just pointing people to practical, actionable things that that actually do matter and that you are actually in control of and can affect change. Yeah, for sure. We just put up a post from my buddy Alex earlier today on our Patreon. If you haven't checked out the Patreon, definitely go check that out. We're doing a bunch of behind the paywall content. We're doing video stuff, breaking down some of the more in-depth ways that we apply some of these things that we're talking about in the main episodes to our lives here in Ogden. There's lots of good stuff in there, communication, group messages, all that good stuff. But we put a post in there and my buddy Alex was just kind of talking about basically expounding on something that Eric has said numerous times. I heard him say it for the first time before I ever even moved here. And this idea that God seldom blesses a man who leans on a shovel and prays for a hole. And he's like, it's good that you would pray, but now use the shovel, like go to work. And so kind of expounding on that, he's talking about how, the strength and the physique is built under the iron. Like the cash is stacked because you're operating the business on a day-to-day basis, or you're working the job that pays you the money. And discipleship happens in the thousands of meals around the table with your family and your children and your wife. And stacking these things all up, and there's obviously more to it than that, but stacking these things all up is what starts to change communities, churches, towns, states, all the way up to the national level. And that's kind of what we're aiming at here. I think there are a lot of guys doing really good work to analyze and diagnose those national or even kind of like cultural issues. King's Hall, for example, is really, really good at that. Brian and Eric do a great job there. So rather than try to be exactly the same thing, kind of our aim is to look at the everyday man and go, okay, what do you need to do now on the ground? Because if all you ever do is look at that national or cultural conversation, it can be extremely demoralizing because you sort of feel helpless. Yeah. You're like, where do I go now though? Like, what do I do? And we definitely feel that pressure as well. Like that rings true for me. So I think constantly reorienting to the thing that's right in front of you and going, all right, what are the things that my hands touch? What are the things that I can affect in my life on a day-to-day basis? And then putting the vast majority of my energy there. And then sure, you look up every now and then and make sure you're headed in the right direction. You look up and see the horizon, but that's not your primary objective all the time, is to look up and see where you're at. The primary objective is to look down and do the work that needs to be done every day. Yeah. Right. I think as well, part of it is we tend to think like, I want a really big change really fast, and I can do that by voting, or I can do that by supporting a politician, or even campaigning, or even running for office. And like, I want to affect everything all at once. And I think this probably comes from our like tendency to want the immediate gratification thing.
Sure.
It's like, but I want that right now. I want the forever home. I want the, I want it right now. And unfortunately, like given the way God made the world, given the post-millennial hope, like we're like talking about sowing seeds that probably will not be harvested for several generations, if not, a long time.
I was just thinking about that last night. We were having a discussion after book group. And one of the guys here is a guy who has employees underneath him. And, he's like, I got this younger guy who is really, really good, but he also feels like he should be 15, 20 years ahead of where he is right now. And he constantly is like, all right, when do I get to take that next step? Which is great. Like you want that kind of guy, but at the same time, you need him to be a little patient. He can't be 35 when he's 22 because that's just not how the world works. And so to that point, us getting to the terrible moment that we're in right now as a society has taken us some time. And it's going to take us some time to get back out of it. And it's going to be a whole bunch of really small decisions stacked on top of each other to get us out of the hole.
Yeah. Some of what you're talking about is like the balance between contentment and patience, and then also like zeal and drive. Mm-hmm. Like how do those things work together and not in opposition to each other? Like because you could have a ditch over here where I'm super content and I'm happy where I'm at. I'm fat, dumb, and happy. And I don't want anything. I don't want anything to change. I'm satisfied. I'm content. Or you could be so zealous that you lack that Christian contentment and that you're just constantly looking for the next thing, wanting it to be 10 years in the future, wanting that thing right now. And I think you have to strike that balance.
Yeah. I think the brutal American is someone who understands that and then is able to actually apply it in their lives and can attack with a really, really high level of tenacity, those things that are set in front of him, but not in a way that is volatile. He's consistent about that. And so like, it's a consistent tenacity, tenacious consistency, the Festinolente principle of I'll make haste slowly. That is the thing that we're aiming at here. And so what does that look like practically? Well, we've done an EDC episode. We talked about church security in that last episode that we did. And we're going to continue to kind of hit on topics like that are a little bit closer to home, a little bit more practical, and like, okay, here are some things that you can be budgeting for. Here are some things you can be training for. Here are some things that you can act on now that can put us in a better position to constantly be gaining authority, power, strength in our communities, just you in your life. If it's, working towards that next promotion or whatever it is, working towards finding a wife, getting married, starting a family, buying your first home, whatever it might be, all of these little steps that lead up to those larger things.
Yeah. In your mind, obviously we're not Eric Kahn.
No, we're not.
The name has changed now. In your mind, like, what are the biggest differences? What, in terms of like what Eric did for, was it 21 to?
Yes, I think it's 2020 to
20.
Us kind of taking it over in the middle of the year last year, so 2025.
5-6 years, 5-6 years.
Yeah.
Certainly, as I remember listening to some of those early episodes, huge focus on very practical theology, applied theology, things in the home, things for men, things for husbands, sons, fathers, a little bit in the cultural side of things and like what's going on in the world and how do Christians respond to it. I mean, he wasn't limited in scope, but no. I guess in your mind, where are we going and how is that same or different?
For me, Eric was a bit of a trailblazer as far as that practical theology goes, as far as being able to put words to things that I had felt or believed for most of my life, but hadn't really ever heard anyone talk about. So for instance, and this is ongoing, it's not like it stopped, but Eric talking about the patriarchy and how to biblically go about building a household and operating within a marriage as a man and a woman. And then also how that feminism has affected all the rest of our lives, from HR departments to marriages to everything else. So that just basically the courage to say things that were not allowed to be said is something that drew me to him very early.
And I think it's important to recognize in the last 5-6 years, the Overton window has shifted quite a bit.
Yeah. Like, especially in the last year and a half, 2 years, it seems like it's moving faster.
Yeah, I think that's true. I think it's got a long way to go. But if you go back to some of those early episodes, you remember listening to them and like, this is fringe stuff. This is out there. And today, when you look at it, you're like, yeah, that's pretty normie take.
I mean, him talking through Piper and Grudem and not egalitarianism, but complementarianism, and then going, this was not good enough. This is not far enough to the truth, and this is a halfway house, and like understanding all of that because he was saying it, and there just weren't very many guys saying those things. He was the one that exposed me to it, and at the time, those were things that like I wasn't telling anyone that I was listening to them.
Yeah.
I wasn't sending those episodes to a bunch of friends.
And I think it's important to remember too that, we've come a long way in terms of through COVID and growing in the faith and growing in our convictions and things like that. And like, we recognize where we were and where we are now. And we've shifted, probably, what I think is in the right way, but some of that content is evergreen. Not everybody is even today listening or in our church, or certainly as you go a couple degrees out to family and friends and places you used to live, they're not there. They haven't come along. And so some of this is really evergreen, where like they're still exactly where we were in 2015 or 2017 or 2019. Like, and so it can be really helpful still to get people there. And I think I like to remember this. It's kind of like why are you a Christian? How, humility, where you don't like look down or you don't like sneer at other people that like, well, why don't you get this? It's doctrines of grace. It's right there in the Bible, because most of us, majority of us we're not always there. Our parents weren't there. Maybe they got there eventually, and maybe it's the way you're raised, maybe it wasn't, but most people kind of go through different reformations and figure this stuff out. And so I think it's important to remember, just like the faith, just like, regeneration, it's only for the grace of God that we're here. And so it's a mercy and a grace, and something that should make us humble and not like haughty when it comes to, it's not like I did this all myself. I'm just so smart.
Right. Which is the tendency for Reformed folks to just go, well, I'm way smarter than you.
Yeah.
And you're just not very,
if you were smarter, you would just get it.
You would be more like me if you were intelligent. But it's not that they're always wrong. Sometimes that's true, but it can be a pitfall for people in our camp for sure. So definitely watch out for that. If you haven't gone back and listened to those older episodes, where it's just Eric monologuing, him writing those episodes and then going through and kind of dissecting some of these cultural problems from that 2020, 2021 era, definitely recommend it. Man, like you said, they are evergreen. And if you've shown up since you and I have taken this over, like since Ethan and I have been doing this podcast, it's definitely worth going back and listening to some of those early episodes with Eric. Cause they're fantastic. They're in large part the reason that I live here. That was my first, exposure to Ogden was Hardman podcast. So, I think in a lot of ways, what we're trying to do is take what Eric started and all of the sort of the ideal discussion, right? Diagnosing the issues and then also presenting some alternative options and going, here's where I think we should go. What we're trying to do is actually go there. And so we're trying to kind of take the baton, if you would, and carry it into the next portion of this. And like, all right, how do we start applying these practical theologies in very concrete ways in our lives?
Yeah. And so much of it comes from, what do we do every day? What do we do in our homes and in our families and our churches and in our friend groups? Like, these are things that we are figuring out or trying to figure out and doing and executing and doing imperfectly. And just talking to so many people that live all over the country, their things are they look at what we've, the baby steps we've taken and say like, man, wouldn't it be so great if we could do that here? And like, yeah, it would be. And so trying to enable and empower some of those things to give guys the, what is it that needs to be done, and then how to do it based on the lessons we've learned, based on the things that have worked, based on the mistakes that have been made. And it's a lot of behind the scenes into like, this is like just normal life here.
Yeah. On that note, basically what happened was Eric, before he ever moved here, had started the podcast, moved here, joined the crew here in Ogden, Brian, Dan, KG, a bunch of the other guys, and was still doing the podcast and kind of doing his own thing. They started New Christendom Press together. Hardman was brought under that umbrella. And then Eric became the CEO of the company. So he's dealing with all kinds of logistical stuff. He's writing books. He's doing King's Hall with Dan and Brian, now Brian specifically. And so basically his plate filled up, including pastoral duties. And
yeah, the church has grown a whole lot in that time. Pastoral duties have ramped up. He became the executive pastor. And also New Christendom Press has grown a lot. We've brought on several employees. We're Brian's records. We're publishing books. I think we have 5 books now?
Something like that.
Several more lined up for this year. And like the company has grown significantly. The conferences have been growing. And there's so much that goes into that. Like it's hard to, like all of the queep, all of the admin, like there's a lot of stuff just to make it, productive and like make your time worthwhile. So there are a lot of irons in the fire. And
kind of we are, in this stage as well, but it's more a decision of like, all right, what do I have to cut off? Like, what do I have to cut out of my schedule today? More so than like, all right, how can I add things to it? Like, that's never the problem. It typically is like, okay, here are the things that I have to get done today. Here are the things, and there's a whole nother additional list of things that I would like to do or things that also need to be done, but not quite today.
And there's a whole nother list of things that will never get done.
Yeah, but they're still on the list. That's kind of the situation he was in. And so basically Hardman just kind of fell to the bottom of the priority list. And we made the joke the other day. I think Brian said this, but Eric was saying that, when he finally stopped doing Hardman and handed over Hardman to us, and Brian was like, you mean just admitted to yourself that you had already stopped doing it? And that was more so the case, is that it just kind of fell off. And so you and I don't remember exactly. I don't know how he made this decision, but I had come on and helped him with a few.
I know how
it was your idea.
Well, basically, like you had done some episodes.
Guys, just in case you're wondering, if you're wondering how something ever happened here, it was probably his idea.
It's kind of like how you had Monday off the other day.
Yeah.
It was my idea.
It was his idea.
No, I mean, basically, I had done a few episodes. There were several interviews that I had done for Eric, and they were good interviews. And then you had done some work. And basically, I looked at it and said, like, we need to do one of two things. This needs to end, and we just cut it off, or we need to, like, somebody needs to step up and, like, actually make sure we're, like, releasing episodes on a regular basis and doing Patreon content and all that. And so I said, I'm willing to do it, but I'm going to, like, it's going to be with Tate. I'm not going to do it by myself. and yeah, that was the idea that was bought and sold.
There you go. You guys are finding this out at the same time as everyone else. Ethan was a mastermind, but here we are. I had done a few episodes with Eric, helped him with writing some cold opens and stuff, basically doing the footwork for the episodes so that we could keep a recording at least coming out, and recorded some stuff with him, and those did well. And then basically we got to the point where he was like, all right, do you want to just go ahead and do this, you and Ethan? And jumped on the opportunity. And then here in the last month and a half, something that my buddy and I had started, which was Brutal American, was already a thing. Basically, we started an Instagram account, and I started making some posts on there, and it's been growing. And then basically what happened was we're like, all right, there are these two things. We don't want them to be competing. And so New Christendom Press acquired Brutal American for me and the buddy. And we're still getting to work on it, obviously. We're still very involved. That's Alex. If you guys see emails from him and things like that. But now, this is the Brutal American Podcast. On that note, if you haven't checked out the Instagram account here in the last, 5-6 weeks.
5 minutes.
Yeah. We went from like 1,600 followers to the last time I checked before we walked in here, it was like 27,000 and some change. So it's blown up and been a whole lot of fun. So hopefully we'll get to make some connections through that, and we'll keep putting content out through there. And then hopefully this will start to gradually integrate with that online following. So that'll be cool. But the Brutal American name, like, where did this come from? This is the main question. It's like, all right, I like it. It's got a ring to it. But where did that?
The pictures are really cool.
The vibes,
the merch.
Yeah. But where did the name come from? And also, like, what does that mean?
And like, why do we have 3 Brutal American polos and never had a hard men polo?
Well, you see, one thing is just cooler than the other. So the Brutal American thing is interesting. About this time last year is when this blew up. And it was one of those Twitter blow ups where it lasts like 48 hours and then no one ever talks about it again, as Twitter does, or X, or whatever we're going to call it now. But the article is written by Ann Applebaum. You might early life check her if you so chose. But she is a journalist for the Atlantic.
Yeah.
Yeah. Who was it? Was it Orrin McIntyre that was like, you don't hate journalists enough?
Yeah, all the time. Like,
this is who
hit the sign.
Yeah,
like, yeah.
This is who he's talking about. Is this class of people
and every other journalist?
Yeah. So she wrote this article, and it was called "The Rise of the Brutal American," and basically it was counter signaling toward the Trump administration with Vance and how they're the bad guys and how America has fallen from its glory and we're no longer the saviors, we're the enemies, we're the antagonist in the story.
The subtitle is "This is how bad guys act." Right. And she gets into it and she talks about how it's not the quiet American or the ugly American, it's the brutal American now. And they're rude and they berate and mistreat and they're ugly and they're just terrible people and they suck. Like that. It's just a hit piece.
As if their ugly behavior achieves some kind of macho win. So this is actually attached to something that happens all the time, which is the thing that we get accused of. If you do anything in real life, this happened with a post the other day that we made in reference to the New Christian Press conference coming up in June.
You're talking about the video?
Yeah. So like we had this post for War for Normal, right? That's the name of the conference. That's the idea. That's the ethos behind it. That's what we're trying to do is basically the leftist satanic regime is trying to break up and smash normal and then make some new hellscape utopia from the pieces. And we're fighting for normal families, normal marriages, normal childhoods, normal Sunday morning worship. All of the things that you would just imagine in quintessential America. That's what we're fighting for. It's the war for normal. These people hate normal. And so when you defend normal, they get very, very upset. And their natural response is to start calling you names. However, sometimes they slip up and call you really cool names. And then you go, okay, that's mine now. And I'm going to keep it. And actually, I really like it.
It's kind of like how Ogden is known as Ogden.
Yeah.
It was supposed to be pejorative. And we're like, yeah, that sounds cool. We'll be Ogden. Like,
right.
And turns out that's where we live. And, people don't know the name of the church, but they know those dudes in Ogden.
Those Ogden guys.
Yeah. What's the acronym? The Very Dangerous?
Very Dangerous Ogden Group. VDOG, the V-Dogs. Yeah.
But that's how a lot of these things go, right? Like a lot of names are coined from pejoratives from the enemy, making a pejorative connotation to this coining this term, and then they say, yeah, sounds good, call us that.
Yeah.
And that's what we'll call ourselves.
Speaking of Needham, we talked about his history of the early church at the beginning of the episode. I just got through the section the other day where he's talking about Christians first being called Christians in Antioch. And prior to that, Christians didn't call themselves Christians. No one called them Christians, but it was this pejorative thing that was adopted. And we were like, actually, yes, that's exactly what we are.
Yeah. Look at all these little Christs. Like, well, yeah, that's what we're supposed to be. Yeah. So, yeah. Call us that.
Yeah. That's exactly the goal. So the same thing is happening here. People like this, leftists, blue-haired feminists, can't stand the idea of men acting like men. And the idea that we would be aggressive, that we would call out evil, that we would make fun of it and mock it, that we would defend our own, that we would fight a war for normal is seen as some sort of terrible, cruel thing.
Or even at best, like LARPing.
Yeah, that too.
I thought that was what you were talking about.
I forgot I was going to go there, but yeah.
Yeah, even like...
Anytime you do anything, you're LARPing.
When my 9-year-old is cutting out biscuits, that's LARPing.
Oh, like, you guys are LARPing all the time.
It's so funny.
This performative weirdos, I think, was the phrase being thrown around, which is hilarious because it's literally just like your wife and your daughter making biscuits.
Yeah. If that's weird, then
count me in.
Then I don't want to be right.
Yeah, exactly. That's kind of the thing. Like one of the videos was me and my buddy Joe. You were there that evening on the men's camping trip. And we're just throwing a football at sunset, and it's one clip, right? Like it's 2 throws, I think. But it's like you performative LARPers. And you're like,
it was a pretty sick catch.
A little performative. The thing is, like, you always get that from people, or typically you get that from people who have never met you and don't know anything about you. So you would have no idea if the thing that you just said about someone in the video is accurate.
That's why I encourage everybody that I talk to that is even considering a relocation here or somewhere else, like, not happy with where they're at, don't have a great church, don't have a great pastor, like go visit, come visit. Like it's like, we're pretty normal dudes. We do normal stuff. We have a lot of fun. Like it's come visit. And like when people leave, they're like, yeah, that's exactly what's going on. And some people choose to move here. Some people don't. I mean, but at the end of the day, like, I mean, we say this kind of thing all the time, but if it's not a good situation where you're at and the kids you're raising aren't in a good church and you don't have other men in the church that they can look up to, and the pastor isn't a man of like conviction and character and courage, then like you got to go somewhere else, because it's going to be really hard to keep your kids when they're inundated with what we're trying to avoid.
Or you end up in a situation where your kids only know you. Like you successfully keep them from the things that you're fighting against, but they have no community other than their family, which is also really difficult. Not really ideal. So that was one of the big motivations for us moving here for sure. It is funny to call it normal. I would call it normal, but in a real sense, it's completely abnormal compared to
the rest of the world today.
Yes. Yeah. Almost it's definitely abnormal to any other place I've been.
Yeah.
It's strange compared to most of what I grew up with, especially when you're talking about a church context and the way men act, the way women dress, like all of those things are abnormal.
Yeah. Well, even when we started the guild and we're having these guild meetings and we're having discussions about books we're reading and things like that, I remember driving home late one night, like I think we were at Eric's house and I was like after midnight, we'd been there for a while.
Because you were at Eric's house.
Yeah. It just kept going. And I just remember driving home feeling so refreshed because it wasn't a debate. It wasn't like we're like fighting different opposing views on like things that should be, like because so many of my experiences at different churches around the country have been, all we're talking about is like normal Christian orthodoxy. And now we have to like fight, like a third of the room is actually like, no, actually women can be pastors, or no, actually, we don't know about the inspiration, but like, just like things like
maybe Trump is kind of mean.
Things like we don't even do that. Like we have debate and we have discussion, we have disagreement, but like not on foundational things. All of those things are accepted. We can have a discussion, like the men's book group the other night. We went through Spangler's book on race realism, and everybody disagreed on something or the other. Like there was nobody who was 100% on any one thing, and everyone had different opinions, whatever. But like we can have 35 guys in the room and have civil discussions and have like productive discussions on something that's like relatively taboo to talk about today.
And then like everyone stands up after discussing this for 2 hours plus and immediately goes to just talking to their friends.
Yep.
Like no one storms out of the room and leaves, and you're wondering what it's going to be like the next time you run into him. Is it going to be awkward? Is it going to be weird? And I just remember so many instances like that prior to coming here. And it's so refreshing. Like we leave and we're trying to get out the door, and then Ray brings up Turnpike Troubadours, and then we stand there for another half hour talking about Turnpike Troubadours because we're just
favorite
buddies.
songs when we're going to the concert.
Yeah. I mean, it's not the same as anywhere else. And I that is, you mentioned this a little bit in the notes for this episode, but like, what is a brutal American? It's not a precise definition, and that's actually on purpose. It's not meant to be this like, if you don't look exactly like Theodore Roosevelt, you're not a brutal American. No, that's not the point. Would I call him one? In many ways, yes, of course. He exemplifies it in lots of ways. Is he the only one? No. And I think that's kind of what we're trying to return to is the loose, like general definition of what the original Americans sort of look like.
Yeah. Like what are we aiming for?
Right. And in like, there were pioneers and frontiersmen. There were fur trappers. There were also merchants. There were also governors. There were also politicians and clergy, businessmen and church ministers. And they were all what you would call brutal Americans at the time when the King of England called what we would say is the American War for Independence, not the American Revolution, because Ethan will not allow you to say that. But
it's kind of like don't call it the space trilogy.
Exactly. It's the ransom trilogy. But at that time, King George was going this Presbyterian revolt in the American colonies. That's what it was referred to as. Well, he referred to as that for a reason. There were Reformed, Christian Orthodox Protestant men who were utterly fed up with the taxation without representation and the treatment that they were getting from their mother country. And they went, we think that we can have an ethnogenesis. We can create a new people and we can do this better here. And there's a lot of attributes that are at play there to have the willingness to cross an ocean at the chance of a better life for your children.
Yeah. In the 16th, 17th, 18th century, like that's insane.
Yeah.
Right. Just thinking about that.
The stones on a guy that would do that.
Yeah. It's kind of like, I don't know.
The obedience of a wife that would get on a ship with her husband.
And her kids. Like, yeah.
Yeah.
How many women today would do that? They're
exactly.
Like, have a nice trip, honey.
And I think that there's something that we're trying to recover there, a boldness, a sense of bravery and courage, but also a sense of aiming at this very high ideal. This is the new land. This is the new Christendom. This is what we're aiming at.
Yeah. And even a lot of it was religious persecution, right? Religious freedom, being able to practice, not being persecuted. It demonstrates the right prioritization of their lives. If I'm willing to cross the Atlantic Ocean because this is that important, that shows you where it falls on it. Like today, I won't even move across town or across state to go to a faithful church, right?
Right.
Would you cross the Atlantic? Like,
yeah,
no.
What does this mean to you? How far are you willing to go? That quote from Lawless is still one of my favorite. It's not the violence that sets a man apart, but the distance he is prepared to go. And I think that the American race, like the American man as an archetype at that time, exhibited a very unique set of attributes when it came to that kind of bravery, that willingness to go and endure discomfort and deal with his failure and his losses or his victories, whichever came by the providence of God, on his own terms, is something that we're going to have to recover. Like the willingness to be hated, the willingness to potentially be wrong, the willingness to also, trying to think of how to say this. I lost my train of thought. Anyways, go ahead.
Well, was there a tweet recently? It might have been Oren McIntyre or somebody like that. But basically the premise was one of two things is going to happen. We're either going to learn to piss off women or of both sexes, or a lot of people are going to die. Like I that wasn't exactly it, but that's kind of the idea is like, we can right the ship if you're willing to offend a few people like a lot of people. But if you're not willing to do that, like we're going to have a significant loss of life.
Yeah. And at some point to grow that backbone is a necessity.
Yeah.
It will either happen voluntarily or it will be forced.
Yep.
Most likely on your children.
Yeah. Absolutely.
Someone is going to have to bow up at some point.
Yeah, absolutely.
That kind of thing is the kind of thing that is still in the veins of the country. Like it's still there in the bones, and you find it in specific places.
In the bones.
You can tell by the bones, but it's still there. Like it is. And I'm sure whatever context you grew up in, you can think of these examples, but mine tend to do with sports and football and that kind of thing. But I remember on Friday nights, everyone on the sideline is going, "Hey, as soon as the Star Spangled Banner is done singing, and the song's done playing, we pray, and then it's time for you to set a very particular tone on the kickoff. You have to come out and hit people right off the bat in a way that makes them not want to play anymore from the first play." And like that kind of like that boldness, the willingness to go out and endure pain and cut out a victory from nothing is still there in many places in the nation, but it's just being suffocated by our egalitarianism and the unwillingness of men to be courageous.
Yeah, I think that's a really good example. I think I was wondering why growing up and even today, what I showed to my kids, why were the Western kind of classics, 50s, 60s, why were they so attractive? Like, because I think they offered a kind of boldness and courage that is very rare today. Mm-hmm. The way men spoke to each other, the way that they didn't put up with crap, the way that they did what was right. Like and so, it's narrative, it's fiction, for the most part, but there is something that you're striving for there where you're like, man, wouldn't it be better if we acted more like that and we were more direct and less coward and we did the right thing. And I think that there's so many like good exemplary moral examples in a lot of those kind of narratives that you just don't get in like real life today.
Yeah. And while they might be fictional stories, it's still based off something.
Yeah. Yeah.
It's based off of some sort of reality, even if the details are fuzzy. There's still something there at the heart of that we should be aiming at and hearkening back to. And so that's kind of the goal with this project is to try to move in that direction. And many of these things, and we see it here all the time, you probably see it in your own household if you have children, are caught and not taught. But there was a certain courage and bravery, and there were a bunch of things that I caught from listening to shows like this and like King's Hall prior to moving here. And so if whatever we can do to kind of like exemplify that, talk through it, make sure that we as a group of men understand why we're doing the things that we're doing, I think the more we can do that, the more it's going to help.
I think about even a recent example like COVID. Mm-hmm. A lot of people maybe didn't get the shot, and that was a good step of courage. But I think most people, if they're honest, would look back at something they did, whether it was my church shut down for 3 months, or I wore a gas station mask for a couple times, or but like things like this, things like Eric saying like don't do it, things like Eric saying like stand up, that's not a law, that's an injunction, that's not a lawful mandate, like and having other people, like my experience was, even with my parents, they're like, well, you have to, we're going to the gas station to get a, Coke Zero. You have to wear a mask. It's a law. Like, watch me not.
Yeah.
And they're like, oh, I actually don't have to. And it is contagious, right? It's something that's caught, and that courage is contagious. So I think the more that we see this kind of thing in real life with people that you are actually doing, in life together with, that kind of thing is caught, and you're like, no, I'm not going to do that thing. I'm going to do this thing. Yeah. And the good examples and setting the good example, if you don't have any, I think is just critically important. Yeah.
Yeah. It's a difficult thing to do, but someone has to do it.
But it gets easier, right? The more that you do it, the more you flex that muscle, the more times you walked into Walmart without a mask and told them, pound sand.
Yeah.
You're like, what are you gonna do? Kick me out? Arrest me? I'll go shop at Target. Whatever. The easier it is.
For sure. It's a skill. I think there's something to that for sure. Like the strength of will is something that is trainable. The courage is something that's trainable. And the more you flex that muscle, the stronger it gets and the easier it is to use. And it becomes a part of your default response rather than something that you have to put all this effort into to kind of move towards. It starts to become just the natural reaction that you have.
Another example is kind of like, does your church practice church discipline at the lowest level? Do people follow Matthew 18 and when their brother sins against them, go and tell them their sin? Do they go and have that conflict, have that confrontation, have that awkward situation? And if you don't, set the example and start to do it. And the more you do it, the easier it becomes. It's never comfortable. It's never something that's like fun to do. Is like, and if it is like, that's a problem.
That's a different problem.
You have a problem. But it's like anything else, the more you do it, the more you're like, nope, this was the right thing to do last time. God blessed it. God blessed my courage. And this was the way it turned out. And we're friends now and we solved that problem and I'm going to do it again.
Yeah. Yeah. That's really good. So maybe let's walk through some things that we think kind of describe this archetype of the brutal American. Like what are we aiming at here specifically for men? What should he be looking to achieve as far as attributes and characteristics in his life? We would want someone to describe us in this way.
Yeah, I mean, we have talked at length about gravitas. We've talked about what's the word Marty coined or used? Agency, gravitas, and agency. I think those two embody it really well.
Yep.
And not to rehash it too much, but that kind of man that when he walks into a room, people pay attention, that they are looking up, they are looking to him for, leadership, for guidance, for advice, to follow out. I mean, this is just human nature, right? Like people tend to be attracted to it. And so how do you cultivate that? How do you make decisions and basically advocate for yourself? Not being a pushover where you actually should take agency and have control over situations. Like I think all of that is one of the defining traits.
Yeah, for sure. I think a good measure of that is, are people looking for your approval? I think the man with gravitas, a sure way of seeing that is that people are looking for his approval. Even if it's not overt, it's sort of like something that the energy shifts in the room. He carries gravity with him. He carries weight when he walks into the room. And so things sort of tilt towards him when he enters a situation.
Yeah. Or are you the satellite that tilts toward somebody else? And like, I think everybody will have these to some extent, but like, are you the fatherless, satellite that's always being pulled into any kind of father figure you can find? Or like, is it time to step up and be that to some extent?
Right. Yeah. That's really good. So gravitas, man with agency. Another thing that we would talk about a lot is toughness, grit. I think this one is really, really big. And once again, everyone's born with a particular skill set. You're going to be naturally gifted in some way or another. And some people are born just really tough. That's just how they are. Other people are not. But this is still one of those things that falls in the category of a skill. You can get better at this. It's something that you can actually grow in. But you have to want to. This is kind of one of those ones that like, you got to really want it. If you want to be tougher, you got to go do things that make you tougher, which tend to be things that suck.
Yeah.
And so, I think the brutal American is a person who doesn't, it's not like you're some sort of like, you're not sadistic.
Masochist.
Yeah. Yeah. Like you're not trying to like go find some way to hurt yourself all the time. Like you can fall into a bucket that's not healthy. I think like, for instance, Goggins is like, this is his entire character is like, if he's not in some insane level of pain all the time, he feels like he's not doing what he's supposed to do. I don't think that that's a well-rounded person. You ought to be able to rest on Sunday afternoon and hang out with your friends and not be worried about your VO2 max for a little bit. Right. At the same time, you don't want to be the kind of guy who gets so used to that leisure that you shy away from and flinch when tests should show up.
Yeah, no, I think you're absolutely right. So that requires in our soft world manufactured, manufactured hardship.
Yeah.
And that's the only way I think that we test ourselves, that we actually improve in those situations is to do intentionally difficult things. I think the easiest example that you can probably point to is like probably the weight room.
Yeah.
Is probably the easiest way to do that in a manufactured way where it's hard and you're pushing yourself to limits and you're like testing yourself on like, am I going to quit? Mm-hmm. And it can be a lot of different things. It can be hunting, and it can be pushing yourself, rucking up a hill and swimming and there's endless things. But I think where we tend as a society, even like this, kind of enclave of like people trying to do it the right way, is toward gravitating towards softness and toward comfort. Mm-hmm. And it's not that all those things are bad, but when it defines you and it's your whole personality and there's nothing you can point to in your life that is difficult, then I think that you have to go and make it.
Yeah. Yeah. It has to be manufactured. I think the weight room is a really good place to do that for sure. And you also get to see the result of it very quickly. You can watch yourself go from not being able to move this weight to being able to move it in a relatively short period of time. You can watch your strength grow. You can watch your body change physically. I here lately have been doing a lot more track stuff because we're getting ready for this GBRS fitness test in April. And I have hated the track since the first time I walked on one. It is the worst. Like I would run however many miles in the middle of a baseball or a basketball or a football game or whatever. I don't want to go run on a track.
To me, it's different. You're chasing a ball. There's a goal
separate focus.
There's a different focus than just like I'm running till I can't run anymore. Like, I mean, it can't be. You can't hate it more than I do because you run like
probably not
60 miles.
Yeah, even that is different. Like running on a trail is different than running on a track, and knowing like I'm just going to get to the point where I am choking on my own lungs trying to get air, and it's just not working anymore. And those are they just suck. Like there's no way around it. I've been doing with the group, we've been doing this workout that's 4 minutes of effort and then 3-minute recovery, and you do it 4 rounds. And I think it's called Norwegian 4x4. It's like this VO2 max workout. It's terrible. But you also leave there with a certain swagger. Like how many people did that this morning before they, ate breakfast and then got ready to go to work? Probably not very many.
And then put in 10 or 12 hours.
Yeah, right. Yeah. And so, grit, toughness. If that's not something that comes to you naturally, which for most of us it's not, then it's got to be something that you're aiming at and trying to improve on. And what you often find is that even if you've made some improvement, you get around a new group and you're like, oh, I thought that I was doing pretty good on this until I ran into these guys. And now I realize I'm way behind and I got a lot of work to do. There's always a bigger fish.
Yeah, I think that's another kind of sub point of this is making sure you're not the smartest guy in the room, making sure you're not the strongest guy in the room, making sure like it's easy, right? I've got an 11th grader that is the smartest kid in the class, but he's in a class of 7 kids and he doesn't realize, and he listens to this podcast. And so he knows this. He doesn't realize how small of a pond he's in. Right. And so, making sure that you're making steps to challenge yourself and continue to push yourself. And because human nature, you become like the people you surround yourself with.
Of course.
On minor things, menial things, like everybody in the basement wears cowboy boots now. So even Martin.
Yep.
Even Martin. And it's just like you become like the people you surround yourself with. And that's for the good or for the bad. And so I've had this conversation with other young men in our church. Like if you go and find the least common denominator, you will become like those people. Just because it's easy, just because you're the strongest or the smartest or the best looking, like that will not help you. And so challenge yourself and find a smarter room, find a stronger room, and, or a better church or whatever the analogy is. But you have to continue to do that. Otherwise you'll just coast.
Yeah. absolutely. The next one on there would be, I'd like to hear you talk about this one, but directness, bluntness, the ability to confront something head on. And then I think one of the big things here is being comfortable waiting for the silence to end. And this is a particular attribute that you and then a couple of my other friends have that I admire a lot, is the ability to just, like, you state your opinion and then just sit and let people squirm. And that has a particular weight to it. And I think that directness, that bluntness in that, and also being comfortable with silence, awkward silence, is something that a brutal American ought to be cultivating.
Yeah, I think this is maybe a more on the soft skill side of, like, maybe toughness or being okay with being uncomfortable. Like, I think they're related. But I also think the underlying thing here is, like, truth. Like, do we care about truth? And it's not, truth to the exclusion of love, but we're supposed to love and truth together. And so much of our culture today wants to call it love. It's really not love. It's really like coddling, or it's like telling lies to make people feel better or whatever. But we have to be able to tell truth in love. Like, I mean, I teach our high school students. I tell them hard truths every day. Like every day I tell them hard things because they need to hear it. Mm-hmm. And I think that's one way that we love people. If we actually do, is that we are honest. And I think that the ability to be direct, to give unvarnished feedback, we have these opportunities all the time, right? People sin, people make mistakes, people do things the wrong way, whether it's your kids or your wife or your friends or whoever you're with. Like, you have opportunities to say, no, I don't think that's the way that you should have done that. Here's my feedback for you. And I think that that's just such maybe a lacking thing in our culture today. And you talk about the Bible Belt and the 11th commandment and things like that, where we're just like, just be nice. If you don't have anything nice to say, then shut up. Like, that's not what we need to be focusing on. We need to be honest men who are willing to give honest feedback because we love the other person. Yeah. And I think that's something that we could all probably improve on.
Yeah. It's not to say that in every single situation all the time you have to tell your entire opinion to the entire room, but I think we tend not to be, as a group, we tend to be on the soft side, not on the too direct side.
Yeah, I think it was Ben talking the other day about gentleness. Were you there for that?
Maybe.
Basically, his point was, gentleness. We tend to think you sinned in you sinned in gentleness, meaning you were too harsh, and that's kind of the only way that we look at gentleness, is like, you should have been gentle and you're too harsh. And men can do this, right? Sure. Women can do it, but there is another, like, if gentleness is the mean, if gentleness is what we're aiming for, in a situation where you are overly gentle, like too soft, and where you should have been harsher, you've also failed in gentleness. Like, there is such a thing as being too gentle, right? If the example I think of is, like, if your 2-year-old stubs his toe and he's crying and you pick him up and hold him and say, it's okay, like, maybe that's appropriate and you're being appropriately gentle. If your 12-year-old does it and you pick him up and coddle him and say, it's okay, baby, come here, to your 12-year-old son, that's a failure in gentleness. Correct. Even though you're seemingly to be super gentle, that's a failure of gentleness.
Because it's actually defined, gentleness is actually defined as using the appropriate response.
Right.
Not always the softest one.
Right.
Right. Yeah, that's really good. I do remember, I think he was talking about it in a sermon Ben did the other day. But I think in this context, sometimes being direct and blunt is the gentle move. That is the thing, like, potentially the bluntness and the directness of the thing that you're about to say keeps someone from jumping off a cliff in their life.
Yeah.
And so what's more gentle? Letting them figure that out in free fall, or going, hey, there's a drop over there. Yeah. Don't do that.
Yeah, absolutely.
The third one, hopefully we won't rail on this forever, because this one's one of the ones that I probably would just soapbox on, but competitive aggression, I think is a good marker of a brutal American. In this, I think for our men, is maybe one of the largest lacking things that we have.
You mean locally or just in
not necessarily Refuge Church. I think we're pretty good about it. We could work on it too. But I think from the perspective of like the Reformed Protestant group of men, we are not nearly competitive enough.
Do you think that's because so many of us were raised in participation trophy environments?
I think that definitely has something to do with it. I think also there's theology attached to it. And so back to your gentle point in avoiding being blunt and direct, this is like the next level of that application rather than just verbally. This is moving into actions. And so instead of being gentle, we are super soft. And what our peers actually need is for us to give our best efforts and try to win. Yeah. Because like you said a minute ago, whoever you're surrounded by, you're going to start looking like them. And if everyone that you're surrounded by gives about 60% effort all the time so that they don't offend anyone by winning, you're going to start doing that too. And that means that you're giving 60% of your effort to the things that God has set in front of you to dominate, which is what you're called to do. Like whatever it is that you've been put, whatever station, whatever task, whatever it is that's been set in front of you, you're supposed to dominate it. You're supposed to do the very best that you possibly can, hoping to win.
Yeah.
And not always expecting. It's like you're going to lose sometimes.
Yeah.
But the goal should be to win.
Yeah. I think this is one where it's tied to egalitarianism and tied to an allergy to hierarchy.
Yeah.
Where our society generally hates hierarchy, loves egalitarian, thinks the world is flat and God made a flat world and that's a good thing. And so like, if you are trying to win, if you're trying to be the best, if you're trying to be better than all of your peers at anything, right? Strength training or golf or having the best podcast or, whatever your thing is, preaching the best sermon. If you think like God made a flat world, then any kind of like doing better than somebody else, identifies and reveals that egalitarianism is a lie and that this is a huge problem. Mm-hmm. Right. And so other people try to pull you down and say, no, he's not actually that good and flatten it out. Or maybe, you're tempted to sandbag and say like, this false humility of like, oh no, it's all grace, brother.
Yeah.
It's like,
yeah.
And there's a lot of temptation to not do that. I certainly there's this hyper masculinity thing where it's like everything is competition and like basically like screw you and I'm better than you and like bravado and things like that. And like that's not what we're talking about. Like
no,
I don't think a lot of people are actually there.
I think that's few and far between, especially in our camp.
Sure, you can find it. It exists. There's lots of fringe examples that exist, and you can find, real white supremacists and real people that beat their wives, and all these things. Like, but that's not the norm. That's actually the hyper minority. And so I think that most people tend toward being just being discipled in egalitarianism and falling into that ditch. And so I think that, to your point, we need to cultivate a good amount of competitiveness. And the thing is, here's how it works. Here's a dumb example of how it works. We start playing golf. I'm better at golf than anybody else in this basement. I've played since, I was in high school. And that's just how it is. But very quickly, Eric became really good at golf.
Yeah.
Very quickly, even faster than Eric, you became very good at golf. And the thing is if everybody sucked and everybody's shooting triple bogeys every time, there's no like incentive to like, actually, I do want to get better at this. I do want to figure it out. And like dumb example, but that's how it works.
Yeah.
Somebody is better than you and you're like, I think I can beat them.
Yeah. If you're going to do something, you ought to be trying to win. I think the example that I would use is actually with the boys in Titus 2 in lifting. And
I'm not good at golf, just for the record. I'm not good at golf.
None of us are very good at golf, but we're trying to beat each other. So we have the boys, they lift all the time. When I get to be in there, it's fewer and farther between these days because the schedule's full. But one of the things that you have to regularly push them on is trying to beat each other. And now, in the context of, getting tougher, getting stronger, being in the weight room, a hierarchy forms pretty quickly. Everyone knows who's the strongest on whatever lift. And typically at this age, if the kid with the biggest back squat is there, he's got the biggest everything.
He's the 17-year-old.
Right. And there's a 13-year-old in there, and the 13-year-old knows that he's not going to beat him. However, it surprises me regularly how often I have to go, are you just going to let him beat you? Like, you just accepted before the competition even started that he was going to win. And you guys aren't like fighting. It's not like you're like putting something really at risk. It's not like he's going to punch you in the face and knock one of your teeth out or something. You're literally just like, I don't know, we're doing planks, or you're like doing a wall sit, and you just immediately know, well, he's stronger than me, he's going to win.
Yeah.
And
you give up.
And you just sort of accept it. You give enough effort to make it seem like to everyone else that you gave enough effort.
Yeah.
Which is not the same thing.
Right.
Like, giving enough effort to make it look like to everyone else that you gave enough effort is very different from giving everything you've got. And so that competitive drive is something that we've got to cultivate more of. And I think this is where we start gaining power and authority, and like in the political sphere, in communities, is like, we need guys who want to win.
Yeah. What it made me think of, our very first Ties 2 event was kind of like fundamentals of MMA, like how to roll around, what are the different positions, things like that. And there was a point at the end. And again, we've got this spread of guys, right? 17-year-old down to 12-year-old, and there's brothers involved. And by the end of it, I don't know if it's like a rubber knife or rubber gun, but it was one of those drills where it's like, you two are here, there's one gun, go, right? And everybody fought. And like, when you give them the head-to-head thing like that, it's not wall sits, who can sit wall sit longer, squat, it's all kind of an individual ranking. Here it's like head-to-head, you are going against this other person, whether it's an older guy older kid in the church or your brother. That's where the aggression, like you can't, like, there is no way you can fake, oh, I just kind of tried a little bit. Like, there's like, no, I'm trying to win, because it doesn't take a lot of imagination to be like, if I lose, I die.
Yeah.
Right.
Yeah.
And so that was one example that we had where it's like, there's something about that head-to-head physical competition that's hard to replicate other ways. Yeah.
That's a good point. And, we're much more comfortable throwing our teenage boys into that, but we rarely want to do that.
We're about
adults.
to.
We are about
We've got
to.
one scheduled in 3 weeks?
Yeah. So we're going to get the wrestling mats out and do some grappling down here in the basement. My buddy Alex is coming.
We'll let you know how it goes.
Yeah. When one of us is in a arm sling.
That actually happened, right? One of our church members does MMA, right? Like goes to the gym, does it regularly.
He was at a jiu-jitsu class the other night.
And something bad happened, and he broke both bones in his below the knee.
Both of his bones in his lower leg. Yeah. His shin.
Yeah.
Is I think he had surgery today, or maybe yesterday.
I think it was today. Yeah. It happens.
It does. Part of life. But we don't want people that we don't want to be the guys who are constantly shying away because something might happen.
You might tear your Achilles jumping on a box,
or even less than jumping on a box, like literally just stepping on a box.
Doing a layup, you might pull a hamstring.
4 weeks in a row. All right, so competitive edge is extremely important. You should be fostering it. It should be something that is marking us. The next one is something that we'd probably qualify a little bit, but sort of like a sense of rugged individualism. This was something that was like a big topic on Twitter maybe a couple months ago. There was some leftist that was saying that they wanted to get away from the rugged individualism of America. And what we can do is turn this into like everything is about me. You don't want to be individualistic.
I don't know the post you're talking about, or I don't remember seeing that. But the left's kind of stated thing is atomizing people down to the individual, right? Rejecting the family, rejecting the nuclear family, and it's all about, the individual.
And so it's always projection from them.
Yeah. So that's not what we're talking about, obviously.
No.
But there is a sense of, I think this goes into authority and responsibility and taking action in the offices and the realms that God has ordained to put you in. And so I think that is something. It's something I see with a lot of the younger boys in high school, of like, they have these training wheels of mom and dad and teachers and people that are like telling them like, do this, don't do this all the time. There's somebody telling, like, just like course correcting, like do this, don't do this, and at some point, young men, if they're going to be successful, recognize, I'm the one responsible. I'm the owner of this thing. Nobody else is going to care more than I do. And I think you can apply that to your family and your wife and your marriage and your kids and their discipline and family worship and the church and like wherever God has put you, your job. Nobody's going to care more than you do. And so like making sure you're not like just doing the bare minimum, but like taking ownership and doing the best you can.
Yeah, I would say more like rugged individualism in the sense of like being independent, being self-reliant.
Yeah.
This even is kind of attached to that first thing we talked about, the gravitas and the agency specifically. A man with agency has a certain sense of rugged individualism. He believes that everything he knows, that everything, like the buck stops with him. And I think that's a really important thing. And it's actually connected to the competitive nature. I just remember one of the things that my dad would tell me going into games that you could usually tell watching tape during the week. Like you're going into this playoff game and it's like, yeah, we're probably not winning this one. But at the same time, like, how do you motivate yourself to go out and play as hard as you possibly can, knowing that you're probably going to lose this game? And the thing that he would always say is like, you need to make sure that the kids on the other team remember what number you wore. And so like, even if your team doesn't win, like they need to remember you.
Yeah, you like if you're the receiver, like they need to be like, that one's a problem. Put your best defensive back on him.
Exactly.
I think that's a great point, right? And that motivation too, where you're like, is it the Chesterton quote where he says like the closest thing to heaven on earth is fighting a losing battle, not losing. Mm-hmm. So like, you recognize their O line has 300 pounds on you, on your O line, and like, and this isn't going to go well.
Yeah,
but you're still fighting like you're going to win.
Yeah, absolutely. How would you want to attack that next one?
Yeah, I don't know. I mean, when we talk about pragmatism or utilitarianism, there can be a lot of baggage associated with those terms and like, what do we mean philosophically and all that. But I think that fundamentally what I think about is like, we want to do things that matter. We want to be spending our time on things that matter. I think this goes into the preparedness, into like what skill sets do we have? What equipment do we have? Do we know how to use it? Like all of those kinds of things, where this would be against the spending all your time on video games, or against the just doing things that are like literally you just squandered that time. Most of us are living lives that like there's not a lot of margin, not a lot of white space. And so making sure that where those things exist, it's like, I don't know, the example I think of all the time is like, you go home and build Legos with your sons, or you like scroll Twitter for an hour. It's like one of those things you can never get back. Mm-hmm. And it's like, you just completely squandered it. And I think that's just a temptation, like maybe a dumb example, but like a temptation that we face all the time is like, is this meaningful? Are we doing anything with it? What's the outcome? What's the reason why we go to the range and shoot a bunch of brass, or we take time away from our family to do, whatever we're going to do? Like, just making that assessment is it a good use of our time? Is there something productive coming out of this? Or is this like, is it something where, Solomon would say is all vanity?
Right. I think in this one too, there's a certain sense of, the results are still the results, no matter how you dress up the game. Like, it's a win or a loss. Did you get the thing done, or did you not get the thing done? And I think just being very, very realistic in those scenarios and going, yeah, I didn't get that turned in on time. Yes, there's a list of excuses that I could give you, but does it really matter? Because the thing's not on time. And so like in those scenarios, being able to just be completely blunt and realistic about like what the results are the results. The fruit is the fruit.
Yeah. I think about this in terms of when we make decisions and how to employ capital, whether it's time or resources or whatever, is like, I don't think we have the luxury to live in a time period where we can, basically like buy the vacation home and go to Italy and go to the Caribbean and like go on cruises and do like all the things that like maybe our parents did or their parents did. I just don't think in terms of utility, if my options are like, I can buy a nice watch or I can buy, 1,000 rounds of ammo, it seems to me like that decision is already made for you.
Yeah, it's a default.
Yeah.
One of those has already been selected. You would have to do something crazy to select the other option.
Yeah. Or you would be like having to live in a delusion where it's like, no, this is not the world we live in, is not the world we live in.
Correct.
And I think that's an example. Or like when I think about, I don't know, decisions maybe your parents would have made or you would have made 10 years ago or 20 years ago, like, I don't know. It's such a hard balance because aesthetics matter, where we want to have a beautiful home and we want to be hospitable and we want to, dress nice and look presentable and things like that. But at the same time, if the difference is like, I can buy a custom $3,000 suit from England, or I can go to Joseph A. Bank and spend, $250, like that decision's already made. Everyone's in their own,
Sure.
tax bracket and everything else. But like, generally speaking, there isn't a lot of like just bandwidth to do a lot of things that maybe prior generations would have done. So I think a lot of times when it comes down to like, will this feed my family if the power goes out and the bread trucks stop running, or, if I buy a ski boat, like maybe we could use it 3 times this summer. Like, it's like one of those things where it's like, you have to be thinking through those worst case scenarios and what would you wish you would have done?
Right. Yeah. I was thinking about that the other day with something. I think it was Ben picking up a TV show that we both enjoy, and it's his first time watching it. And I was kind of thinking like, I would like to watch that again, actually, especially just because he's watching it. I'd like to talk to him about it. And then I like immediately was confronted with, when in the world would I do that? Like, I would have to sacrifice, but the only way I would be able to do it is I would just sacrifice an hour of sleep, every time I wanted to watch an episode. And there's like, I can't do that right now. Like, you at some point I will be able to.
But here's what happens, right? And we all know this. You do that, you sacrifice the sleep, you sleep in, you miss your workout, you sleep worse the next night. Like you gain 5 pounds. Like that's how that goes.
Yeah.
Right?
It's not a single decision. It's actually a cascade of decisions that's going to be made in this one wrong, like this one wrong, basically you're sacrificing something good for something that's not really worth it.
Yeah.
And being pragmatic about that and going, actually, as much as I would love to do that, I probably can't right now.
Yeah. I think about the other example being like, I need a carry handgun, and I can buy a Staccato for $3,000, or I can buy a Glock 19. And I'm not saying like, don't get the best you can, something you can rely on and all that. But like at the end of the day, if money's tight and, that would have been several thousand rounds of ammo in the difference, it's like, don't buy the fancy thing, buy the utilitarian thing that will work every time.
Yeah, absolutely. So that next one is sort of like it's related to several of these other ones, but moral severity, the ability to be very, very, I think like black and white with like right and wrong, good and bad, good versus evil, and being willing to go, the line is right there, and let it stay there, and not have to constantly qualify everything to death.
Some of that's a rejection of neutrality. I'm thinking about that because somebody brought this up last night in the book group, and I can't remember even the context, but they said something was neutral, and the reality of,
I remember that comment. Yeah,
I don't even remember the context of it. It's not really the point, but the reality of it is like the world God made, like nothing is neutral, And I mean, this was popular several years ago about the myth of neutrality, right? But just rejecting that and thinking like everything I do is moving in one direction or the other.
Yeah.
And there might be things that, might not move you as far in the bad direction, or not, maybe it wasn't the best decision you could have made, but it was better than making the bad decision. And so I just think it's not meant to produce decision, paralysis, or like, well, I don't know exactly what the right thing to do is. And sometimes you get several choices that are all positive, and you get to pick the best one or your favorite one or preference and things like that. And that's great. But I do think rejecting that, like what I'm doing right now is neutral and has no
it
consequences.
exists in this vacuum that doesn't touch the rest of reality.
Yeah.
I think like coming back to your, playing video games, for instance, or whatever it is that you're doing to just waste time, in the pursuit of just personal entertainment. That's not a neutral thing. And it kind of sort of can feel like it is. It doesn't feel like, it sort of feels like this gray area. Like I'm not doing anything wrong. I'm not sinning. But you're also taking this thing that is supposed to be redeemed, which is the time that you have, and you're just sort of throwing it away on nothing. And I think that there's a realization, like you have to come to grips with that reality that you're right. There's nothing that's neutral. And so being willing to go, this is right or wrong. This is black and white. And even if it's going to be offensive to a bunch of people.
Unpopular.
Right.
Yeah. I've had this conversation with another young man in the church. And he's homeschooled, and Saturday he plays video games all day Saturday. And I've tried to explain a couple times, well, how many days did God give us to work? 6. How many days of rest? 1. Because that's his argument. It's like, well, I've worked hard all week. This is my day to rest. It's like, no, Sunday is your day to rest. And I'm not even going to fight you on whether you can play video games on Sunday or not. Like, I'm not saying like we're not strict Sabbatarians where we're like no recreation, no nothing. But Saturday is a work day. And whether you're working for your dad or working for somebody else in the church or studying or whatever you're doing, is like, it's not a day to just goof off and waste. And like, he's close enough to adulthood where it's like, what are you going to do if you turn 18 and you're on your own and you're working, and like you just put in your, like, this is not the world we live in. You can't put in your 40 hours a week and expect you're going to get ahead, much less keep your head above the water.
Right.
For an 18-year-old who has no education, no bona fides, like, what do you think is going to happen? Like, you're going to be on the verge of homelessness.
and quickly, like, and it's hard to get out of that situation once you get there. It's a long climb out. Like, why would you put yourself there to begin with? And the thing that scares me most about that kind of decision making is that someday you're going to wake up and go, what have I done? Like, what has my life been?
Yeah.
Nothing. Like, there's nothing to show for it because I spent, days, weeks of my life playing this game that doesn't actually mean anything.
Yeah.
So
I think on this one as well can come down to like the everyday decisions. Am I going to enforce the discipline that I've set for my family and spank my son, or am I going to count to 3 again and say, do you need a spanking? Are you going to behave? Like
87 warnings.
Yeah. I think it's stuff like that. I think it's basically, are you going to get up and do, like you told your wife, hey, I'm going to work out 4 days this week. And like, no, I'm going to sleep in again. Like, are you going to be a man of your word and like hold yourself accountable and have other people around you to hold you accountable to what you said you're going to do? I think that's a lot of this as well.
The better you get at like not hitting that snooze and doing the thing, the more addicted you become to it. Like, we're just creatures of habit. It's just the way that humans are. And so I've gotten to the point in that particular scenario, not to like pound my own chest, in that particular scenario, procrastination and like working hard on stuff like the gym is not a difficult decision for me. In fact, it's become the opposite. My wife was making fun of me the other day because I said, I'm not going to work out today. And I let her know I'm not going to the gym this evening. I know I didn't work out this morning. I'm not going to go try to make up for it as soon as we finish dinner. And she was like, oh my gosh, you're going to be so weak. She just like immediately started like giving me a hard time about it. But that is like, she's like, you realize this is the first day in months that you haven't done that thing. Now there are other areas of my life that I procrastinate terribly, and you have to work really hard, and I have to force myself to start something knowing for 2 weeks that I need to start it. Right. But the more you practice that skill, and it is translatable across these different categories, the better you do get at it.
Not on the topic, but just because you brought it up. If you say, if you don't work out in the morning and you have to work out in the evening, do you get up and work out the next morning, or are you like stuck on evenings all week?
No, I would go right back to mornings.
Yeah.
Depending on how late it was when I did the previous night's workout.
Yeah. And because you're hitting like different muscle groups, you don't feel like that recovery time or whatever you need is like that big of a deal.
I try really hard not to do competing stuff back to back.
Yeah.
Like I wouldn't squat on Monday and then deadlift on Tuesday. So the likelihood that I'm going to run these workouts really close together that are going to compete with each other is small chance.
But even if that happened, you'd be like, I'm just going to go to the track and do a cardio workout instead.
Yeah. I would find, you would just find something to do. I kind of have like I don't know when I started doing this, but I have sort of like this, you got to earn your shower at the end of the day. Like I should be in need of the shower when I go to take it later in the evening because I actually did something that day. Obviously this doesn't apply if you're like working out first thing in the morning, but, I think there's something to like, I'm just going to do something every day. Even if it's like, I've got 5 minutes, I'm just going to see how many push-ups I can do in 5 minutes. And that'll be better than nothing.
Sure.
You can get a lot done pretty quickly. If you just commit to this, like I'm never going to let a good day go by unless it's a scheduled rest day that I just do nothing. So that's been kind of the thing for a while. Here recently, I've added a step count to that because I'm trying to drop some weight. So just moving more throughout the day. So
even, I know we've talked, golf is not a good example, but tennis is, where we'll play tennis for 2 or 3 hours and it's like pretty, recreational tennis. Like it's not like anybody is, I mean, we have a couple guys who are pretty good, but like most of us are just kind of very, very average.
Playing for fun, yeah.
But you can be out there for 2 or 3 hours and burn 1,000 calories like nothing.
Yeah.
Right. It's like the difference between if you told me to go to the track and burn 1,000 calories, that would be way more hateful than just hitting a tennis ball back and forth. But
yeah, for sure.
Still good movement. I think working on the agility, working on a lot of those muscles that you can't. You have to be doing something athletic, some kind of sport to actually work on.
Change of direction, body awareness, coordination, all that good stuff.
Yeah, absolutely.
Hand-eye coordination for sure. Ben Kahn actually sent me an article, and there's this meta study done on what hobbies and sports contribute to longevity the most. And tennis and paddle sports are at the top. So pickleball, tennis, that kind of thing is at the top of the list, mainly because of the cardiovascular side of it, but you're also doing this change of direction stuff. And so, very, very low resistance, low heart rate running, like zone 2 running is great, but it's not as good as like this fast twitch change of direction stuff. That's kind of like being able to jump and sprint is like a good sign that you're still in good health. Right. And so tennis is a good example of that, but it also involves your mind, where some other stuff can get very mindless. You can go get a runner's high and run 6 miles, but you sort of drift off into another world and you're not really paying attention, and it's not very engaging mentally. Whereas tennis,
you're like looking at the guy or the guys across from you. And
you're reacting in the moment.
And you're trying to get in their head. It's almost like chess, right? Or poker, where you're like trying to think about what are they going to do? Can I hit it up the side? Are they cheating over too much? Like there's a lot of that strategy involved, which I think is really good.
Yeah. It's a lot more cognitively engaged. So that's some attributes of a brutal American. This is something that we could obviously expound on drastically. But that's a good baseline. That kind of gives you guys an idea of where the name came from, where we've come from leading up to this point with this podcast, starting it with Eric and Hard Men, transitioning all the way to Eric Ethan and I taking over the show, and then changing the whole name and everything to Brutal American, and then kind of where we want to go with it from here, what we're trying to aim at, what we're trying to build, this archetype of the Brutal American that we're trying to kind of cultivate.
Yeah, I think maybe to close, we can kind of run through some of the roadmap for this next year, of like some of the things that we're going to cover, some of the things we want to do. Every quarter we've done an Ask Anything.
Yeah.
And so we actually have another one coming up. I think I'm going to send the message out next week. So if you have things that you want us to cover, do it for the AMA, like please send those in. We definitely look at those and try to answer those questions. It's super helpful. And then I don't know, do you think the War Stories thing is going to happen?
I would love to do that. I think we should. Okay. I think it's a good idea.
Well, idea we had. So Haunted Cosmos does.
Idea we had.
Actually, I just ripped it off Ben and Brian. Haunted Cosmos does their, what do they call it? The ghost story thing?
Graveyard Shift.
Graveyard Shift. And so they have people call in with like supernatural weird things that happen to them. Idea we had was to do a similar kind of thing where people call in with their war stories, whether it's military or law enforcement or first responder, you know, what hunting, whatever the thing is, like kind of like, this is a cool, relatively short story. We can call in, talk about it. Kind of like the way the Instagram has taken off in terms of like submissions and things like that. So I think at some point, maybe in the second or third quarter, we might start doing that. So if you have something that you want to submit, we'll get a Google survey out or something so we can collect those and go through them and have people call in. So that was an idea. Hasn't actually materialized yet, but I think it'll come down the pipe.
I think we can pull it off. Yeah. I think it would be a lot of fun to get to interact with some of you guys and hear some of your stories. And then obviously it would make great content too. So you want to go through a couple ideas or kind of like roadmap of like what can be expected. This is probably even more than the next year.
Yeah.
There's a ton on here. And there's one that we got asked about the other day that we need to add to the list, which would be building out your own home gym.
Oh yeah.
Which is a really big thing right now. Tons of guys doing it. I've had a home gym before. Right now, that home gym has turned into a Refuge Church men's gym. So lots of guys are using it. Hopefully we'll get to expand it here soon. We'll see. But yeah, I think having some home gym equipment and basically everyone's going, all right, what do I get? Like, what's the list of priorities? What should I be looking for? What brand should I, look at? And so we'll kind of walk through some of that stuff, hopefully.
The other one we talked about doing probably in the next month or two is Evan never has built a rifle. Mm-hmm. And so we're going to build
Evanescence.
Yeah, we're going to build a rifle out with Evan. And I think this goes into, I don't know if we're calling what we're calling the series, but kind of like the everyday carry stuff. What is the kit that every man should own? Like, what is body armor or helmet or comms or rifle, or like what kind of gear should every man at a baseline be striving to own and be proficient with? I think that would be tied into that kind of thing. Like to do something with Armored Republic and with Atomic at some point and go through some of their ammo and some of their products. We've had people ask about sleep.
Yeah,
I think that's a big one.
Huge. This is one of those things that I think is like such low hanging fruit, but it's something that people have a really hard time with. Just naturally, a lot of people have sleep apnea or they just struggle getting to sleep. They have insomnia, whatever it is. And so, if your sleep is messed up, it's going to throw off literally everything else in your life, from hormone production to how you digest food to your energy the next day and everything else. So, we will probably do an episode, kind of a deep dive, similar to what we did, with DHT or with, what was the other one that we did? What is that called? Dopamine.
The
dopamine episode, similar to those where we kind of do a deep dive and give you guys some good information on like how to optimize sleep, why it's so important, that kind of thing.
Well, another idea. So we did the best Western movies. I don't remember if it was 7 or 10.
I think it was 7.
7. I think we need to do the same thing with the war movies.
Send some recommendations in the Patreon.
Yeah. What are the best war movies that every man needs to have watched? Why we need to repeal the 19th Amendment. I think that one would be a super popular episode.
We'll let you guys in on this. That was supposed to be the one that we did with Eric on feminism.
Yeah.
But then Eric was here.
And we didn't really get there, but we'll get there eventually. One, I'm actually, well, we all read Gates of Fire this year. I think that's one we should talk about, why everybody should read that book and why it's like, I think really helpful for like this kind of content, what we're talking about.
Exemplifies a lot of the, in its different characters, it exemplifies a lot of the different characteristics of a brutal American in a different context.
In the, gun and preparedness section, we're getting into doing more dry fire. And I think that that's something that is very self-evident, that people who practice dry fire in their home perform better on the range. Yep. I don't think anybody can argue with that. So I really want to do one that kind of goes through, what is it? What are the kind of minimum things you need to be able to do this? What's the next level? What's the A level? We've got different stuff like Mantis and Cool Fire, and we've got a simulator and different equipment that can make this more enjoyable and more productive, but not necessarily necessary. And so I think going through all those different systems and what we like and what we don't like and what could be improved, I think that would be really helpful for people that want to do more dry fire and, not spend much money on bullets, or maybe they can't get to the range as much. I think that is a helpful way to train in a way that's like pretty cost effective.
Yeah, absolutely.
We have a range day actually set up for tomorrow
afternoon. Got here quick.
And so for us at this point in the year, we're going through more 2-gun stuff with a full kit with some more movement. So both moving and shooting, and also like moving in between barricades and things like that. So I think Evan's going to come to that one. We should be able to have some good breakdown of that on the Patreon after for this episode. So look forward to that. And we'd like to do more of, here are some drills that we like to do. Here are some things we do every time. Here's some different stuff. So
yeah,
more range stuff to come. You talked about building home gym.
Nicotine was another thing that we did want to dive into at some point. Pretty much all the guys in the basement use nicotine. I'm really interested. I would like to do some research basically on the especially because of the brutal American kind of theme of the whole show, the founding of the nation and the building of the nation and the economic drivers, especially towards the beginning in the birth, was largely tobacco products. So I'm just curious on how all of those things tie together. Obviously there's all of this new research coming out about the benefits, like cognitive benefits, the cognitive bulletproofing of nicotine, even stopping testosterone conversion to estrogen. There's all kinds of stuff that could go in that episode. So I'm kind of looking forward to doing that one as well.
It would be interesting to have some, testing done as well, blood work or blood pressure. I've heard.
Did I tell you that I went and got tested yesterday?
No, for what?
Test. I'm just curious. I've never been tested to see. I've never tested to see what my testosterone levels are.
2,000.
That would be great. That would be.
Oh, awesome. You haven't got it back yet?
No, I haven't got it back yet.
Yeah,
we'll see. Maybe we'll let you guys in on that and talk about it a little bit, because I know it's something that everyone is working on right now, trying to optimize hormones, and Martina McBride would say optimize hormones.
But it's kind of an ethereal thing, because if you're not getting blood work done regularly, is the thing that you're doing or the things you're doing, are they helping? Are they hurting? It's hard. It's not something like you can just get on the scale and look at body fat or something. Like you actually have to go and get it done. So.
Yeah. And you can go by feel. And if I was just doing that, then I probably would have never gone and gotten tested. But the thing that forced it was, I've been really clean with diet for a couple months, specifically dropped some body fat. Workouts have been really good. And it was kind of one of those like, all right, if it's not good right now, it's not going to be good. That means there is genuinely some environmental factor or something that is causing a deficiency. So,
or you at least have a baseline for where you would be at. Yeah. What does it cost?
I went through a company called Blokes. So they send in, basically there's...
it's like online or...
Yeah, the service is online. Basically you just need a request from a doctor to go get it tested. As far as I know, I'm sure there are other ways to do it. There are clinics all over the place where you can just walk in and go, hey, I want to know what they are, what my levels are at. But that's what I did, because they were running this special where you could go get like not a full panel test, but like a pretty decent panel test for like $53 or something like that. It was pretty
Yeah.
cheap. So I was curious. I wanted to go do it. I felt like right now was a good time to go find out. Like I said, if they're not good right now, then there genuinely is something wrong. And the other thing is that I know guys personally who I would never have guessed are, below 600, below 500, who have gone and gotten tested in the last few years, and they're, high threes, low fours. And you're kind of going, well, if you were at 800, how much better would you feel? Because you seem to be fine right now. Like, you're a high performing guy, strong, you're in the gym all the time. Everything seems good, but like, could things be 30, 40% better? If levels were where they should be.
Yeah. Yeah. Maybe it's worth touching on that again, like how to get there.
Yeah. Yeah, for sure.
Other stuff. I talked to Tim last week, and he wants to do like a whiskey tasting episode that we do. So kind of going through, like, he's really smart into like what are the new and up and coming kind of distilleries out there. What are the sleepers? What are the ones you can get still reasonably and not be paying like,
Happy
prices or Blanton's for something that should be $40, and so it's really interesting. Every time we go over there, he's always like, oh, you got to try this. You got to try this. So
he's got a collection.
Yeah, he does. So I think we'll go over there and do a on location one, maybe in the next couple of weeks for that. I'm excited for that. It's always a good time.
Yeah.
But beyond that,
man, there's a list of ideas.
Yeah,
you guys will get to see them.
I've got an idea that I've been wanting to do, but I actually don't know how to do it yet. It's like, how do you encourage your wife to carry? Like, just practically, like, we can talk about how to go to the range and train her and all those things, but like, for a woman who's like not wearing pants or a belt, or like, how is she supposed to carry?
Yeah.
And I know some of these things exist. Like, you've seen the neoprene belly bands with like a Kydex holster in them, and women are like pull up their dress and grab their gun out, or like a fanny pack maybe, but like
some sort of like nice bag that has some sort of carry slot.
All these things exist. I don't love any of them.
Yeah.
But at some point, I think we do need to rip off the Band-Aid and say, like, none of these are great, but like, it's better than nothing.
Yeah.
And like, the odds of her being in a quick draw competition are very low. And so having a gun on her person, in the vehicle, is better than nothing at all, because it's too hard.
Yeah.
So I'd like to cover that at some point.
Yeah, we'll have to dig into exactly what we would recommend on that, because it's not something I've done a ton of research on. In all honesty, in a lot of scenarios, the preemptive, proactive approach is the one that we typically take, where it's like, okay, well, you shouldn't be there without me.
Yeah.
You shouldn't be in that situation. We're just going to avoid that altogether. If you can do a grocery pickup instead of going and walking around in the store with our kids for an hour, that would be much preferred. Like trying to figure out ways to just mitigate the risk. But still, that's not, you can't mitigate all of the risk.
No, you can't. In the home is a little bit easier. I think we can talk through some of those things, and gun safes and what do they call shot box? Mm-hmm. Things like that, where you keep the guns out of the hands of the kids, but they're still somewhat accessible. But like, out and about is a lot harder, I think.
Yeah, definitely.
So
cool.
Yeah, I mean, that's maybe a third of them, but we've got tons.
There's a whole list.
Tons of roadmap, tons of road ahead. So we're excited for this next year, and yeah.
Lots of content coming. Thank you guys so much for the support. Really appreciate it. If you haven't checked out the Patreon, definitely go check out the Brutal American Patreon. Lots of good stuff on there. If you want to support the show, that's the way to do it. So for the guys who are already in there, thank you very much. If you haven't checked it out yet, what are you waiting for? Also, massive shout out to our sponsors here on this show. Christian companies doing good work. We really appreciate them. If you have any inclination, the conference for New Christendom Press here in Ogden in June is going to be a blast. We've got golf tournament. We've got cookout and big picnic hangout. We've got New Christendom games. There's going to be great talks.
VIP mixer is a great time.
Singles mixer
for all the single guys, single gals out there. Like, that's always a great time. I've lost count, but it's over half a dozen marriages that have come out of these mixers. So really excited. I'm actually next Saturday going to perform a wedding for a couple that met at the conference last year.
Heck yeah.
Really excited for that.
Awesome. And then always, arguably the highlight of that conference is getting to worship with a group that big and go through our whole liturgy together, sing, pray, worship together on Sunday morning. So definitely stick around if you're going to be here for that. Stick around for Sunday. And then we always go do a big potluck at the park, which is a lot of fun as well. So look forward to seeing you guys there. Definitely come say hi to us if you're going to be there. And yeah, looking forward to the rest of the year, all the content coming up. And hope you guys are enjoying it. Stay frosty, fight the good fight, act like men.